The Hangzhou Spark were probably the biggest overperformers of the previous season. Coming this season, they picked up an entire new Chinese support line, and so we'll see if this affects the core too much to the point where they don't play as well as they did last season. Coming into the season, they finished 18 and 10 last season, fourth place, like I said, which is probably like way higher than I think anybody really expected. As the season kind of went on, there was more hype built around them about like this could be one of the best teams in the league, but I don't think anybody really expected at the beginning. And I think this comes to a lot of above average play from players. There's a lot of talk about them not having any superstars besides like Gushui, but I really think this roster's solid. And so yeah, as we get into this, I'll talk about their departures and their pickups first. They lost Crystal in October, and then like half a month later in November, they lost Revenge, who went to Runaway, and No Smite, the tank, who went to the Paris Eternal. I don't think any of those really affect this roster. I think even like obviously yeah, it's nice to have a backup tank, I guess. Like No Smite, now that he's gone, you don't have anybody to work with if whatever was to happen, if he was like super sick, anything like that. You don't really have a great tank. But I don't think he really helped the team anyways, and you don't have to worry about splitting scrim time, because I'm pretty sure that was a problem last season. They were just still trying to figure out who they really wanted in there, if they wanted Gushui or No Smite. Now that he's gone, you know you're committed to Gushui. I think they would have been committed to him anyways this season, but obviously I think Gushui were a solid tank duo there. But outside of Gushui, nobody on this team is really rated as a superstar. And I don't know if I'd put any of these guys as like the best in the league at their respective role, but I think they're all way above average, and I think that's one of the reasons they went 18 and 10 last season, and finishing fourth in the league. I don't think this team's gonna drop too far, but we'll unless this happens. They have a new support line, picking up Coldest and Mika, and I believe they're both on the same team. Yeah, they both came from Bilibili Gaming, where they were actually pretty decent in China. They lost to LGE Huya twice in the third and fourth place matchups there. So, or in like the semifinals, I guess you could say. So nothing super crazy success, but they played well together, and obviously they'll have that chemistry. But they're both Chinese, and Gushui is the only other Chinese player on the roster. So now you have 3 Chinese players. Everybody else is Korean. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do, because IDK and Bebe, I rate that support line. I think that's a really solid support line. I think that's one of the reasons they did so well last season. And now you bring in these two guys. Obviously, there's a lot of pros to bringing in these Chinese players. Hangzhou, obviously a Chinese team. You can get that like home field advantage type like cheering and support from the crowd. But I think they would have already gotten that anyways, just from having Gushui. And now that you pick up Coldest and Mika, you're really putting, I guess, a rut in the communication between these players, because your entire core that led you to an 18-10 season, besides Gushui, was Korean. But now you're bringing these new guys. What are you going to do? Are you going to have them learn Korean? Because even if you do, because there are way more Korean players in the roster, if you have the 2 new guys learn Korean, that's still a lot of time that 2 guys need to learn a new language to communicate well. Or are you going to have the rest of your roster try to learn Mandarin if you're trying to commit to a Chinese roster? And so it's kind of an interesting position. And I like IDK and Baby. I think if you put in Coldest and Mika, you're downgrading your team in like every sense. You're going to be messing with the communications. You're going to be messing with 2 supports that had an entire season already in the Overwatch League together. And I think that'd be a big mistake. And I think they should go with Bebe and IDK. But obviously I have not seen Coldest and Mika perform on the stage. And I imagine they'll give them some like reps together on the stage, especially if it's like it's against a really bad opponent and they think they've already won the series, something like that. I can see them getting the playtime. Because don't get me wrong, like I've talked in some of my videos before, I love seeing underrated players perform well. I love seeing them surprise everybody. But like from a purely, I guess like tactical quote unquote point of mind, I don't think they should take away IDK and Baby, who I thought played really well last season, and like risk the disruption to the team. Obviously, if you put them in 1 week and it doesn't work out, you can always change it back, and it's only 1 game if it doesn't work out. So I think they should definitely give them a chance at some point, but I can't see them starting the season with IDK and Baby on the bench for a new duo, because the chemistry just won't be there. Baby and IDK have already worked with the team for however long, and the new guys, obviously, the language will be messed up. So if they do get it, I think it might be later down the line in the season when they have a bit more time to develop that chemistry, to learn the language a bit more. But I think that'll definitely be interesting to see. And I think that'll be like the biggest question coming into the season for these guys. If they just keep the roster though, I don't think it's going to be I don't think there's any situation where they perform better than fourth place, or even fourth place like they did last season, because even if you put in Quotas and Mika, say they do end up playing better. How much better are they really going to be than IDK and Bebe? I don't think there's enough there to, because if it's kind of like a comparison between the other teams. Yeah, like you won 18 and 10 last season, but everybody else is still improving. Like there are a lot of teams in this league who improved a ton from last season, and I think you can't really stagnate and keep the same roster necessarily. I mean, I think there is a benefit to keeping the same roster. Just like in real sports, like the longer you keep them together, the more they'll develop together, and people are always developing their skills. So it's not like, oh, they're going to be the same skill level as last season. There's always a chance to improve. But I think the other teams have just improved more. The Spark are going to keep dropping games even if they're just as good as last season. So I think they're going to end up finishing lower than fourth place anyways. But I definitely see them being top 10 at worst. I think they could finish maybe 8th, 7th, somewhere in there. And I could definitely see them kind of being like that upset team again. Like last season, nobody really rated them until it got through a good part of the season. Coming this season, there's obviously some hype around them. I know some people are rating them pretty highly. But because of the new support line and not knowing what's going on there, I think people are like I believe it was on the Overwatch League website actually. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Yeah, this article about the Hangzhou Spark team preview for the season predicts them to be top 10, 12 or top 12 team with low expectations to make the top pack, end quote. And I think that's a bit underrating. Like I think this team's solid. They came off the only thing I'm worried about though is they also did, I forgot to mention this earlier, they came off of a stage 4 where they only went 4-3, which isn't bad. I mean, hey, if you take that most stages, that'd probably get you at least close to the playoffs, and it would just depend on a few key game switches here and there. But after coming off of like a 6-1 stage 3 when it was GOATS meta, dropping down to 4-3 in 2-2's not great. Obviously now that's going to be the enforced meta. But I think this team is underrated. I really rate these guys. I think they're solid. Yeah, like I said, I think you have Godsby and Bazi as your two DPS, or Adora. Sorry, Bazi's a 2A player, which I meant to talk about too. I think it's cool. Obviously, this season they can get more 2A players. It's only mentioned on their current roster that Bazi's the only 2A player who's currently on the roster. But Adora and Godsby, solid DPS. Gushui and Ria, again, very solid. I think the whole season, I think there's a very low range for this team. I really do think they'll be 10th to 7th, somewhere in there. I don't think they'll get much worse or much better than that. But like, I think it comes down to those supports. Other than that, it's a very stable lineup, very good lineup. So yeah, this is definitely a team I'm going to be watching. I when I watched season 1, of course, I had all that time to grow an affection for the inaugural teams, and so in the second season, I just haven't had as much time with these new teams. But this is definitely one of the expansion teams that has caught my attention the most. So I'm super excited to watch these guys. I just realized this is like an Intel ad on the background. Oh well. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.